Welcome to World Gestures. Today's topic is about 10 gruesome torture devices used in modern times. If someone asks you to think of torture devices, you would probably picture some crazy medieval contraption. But you probably couldn't come up with any modern torture devices because, hey, no one really tortures anyone anymore. Right or wrong? Number 1 is Tiger Bench. China really hates the practitioners of Falun Gong, a sort of spiritual discipline first introduced in 1992. Since the beginning, many Falun Gong followers have been brutally punished. One form of torture used on them is a device called the tiger bench. This works by placing a prisoner on a long bench with a board against their back and head. The prisoner is then tied down so the back is secured to the board and the feet and legs are secured to the bench. Next, bricks are placed under the feet until all the straps holding the legs down break or the prisoner's legs snap before the straps do. In one case from 2002, Miss Wang was walking home when the police abducted her. For 2 days and one night, she was tortured on the tiger bench while also being beaten and electrocuted. The shackles dug into her ankles so badly that the bones were visible by the end of the torture. Along with the tiger bench, Miss Wang was also beaten by the guards, hung naked on a wooden board so male prisoners could humiliate her, had one of her eyes burned by a cigar, and had her ears stabbed with skewers. She eventually died in 2007 while still in police custody. Number 2 is hell confinement. For Falun Gang members unfortunate enough to be caught, there is an option arguably even worse than the tiger bench, the hell confinement. The hell confinement uses a device that includes a pair of handcuffs and a pair of foot shackles, both of which are linked to a steel rod. The rod presses against the prisoner's back, making it nearly impossible to walk, sit, use the washroom, or even feed themselves. Su Hang is a Chinese woman who knows just how cruel the practice is. After she was arrested for partaking in a Falun Gong exercise in a public park, she was taken to an undisclosed location and tortured with the hell confinement. For 7 days, she did not eat, barely walk, couldn't sit, and was forced to defecate on herself until she was finally released. Number 3 is the Tucker telephone. If you ended up in prison during the 1960s, the last place you wanted to be sent was Tucker State Prison Firm in Arkansas. In the 1960s, doctors at the prison began using a torture device on some of the more unruly prisoners that became known as the Tucker telephone. The device worked by placing a ground wire around the big toe of a prisoner while fastening another wire, the hot wire, to the prisoner's genitals. The telephone, which had been modified to send electric shocks, was then cranked, sending electricity right to the family jewels. And sometimes it wasn't just a turn of the crank and done it quietly. In prison terms, a long distance phone call meant the prisoner would be shocked repeatedly. The Tucker telephone was finally banned in the 1970s. Number 4 is Strappado. While the Strappado was used heavily during the Renaissance, it seems to have experienced a resurgence during the last century. Many people may know now it as a Palestinian hanging, a form of torture where a prisoner is hung by the arms which are fastened behind the head, causing the arms to be slowly wrenched from the shoulder sockets by the weight of the body. When the prisoner finally becomes so tired they cannot hold themselves upright, the bodies fall forward and the breathing is impaired. One of the last known cases of the United States using this form of torture was on Mandel al-Jamadi in 2003. He was arrested for allegedly being involved in making explosives and was sent to Abu Ghraib, where he died while being tortured. Number 5 is cold cell. The CIA has 6 interrogation techniques they are authorized to use, and one of them is basically torture. The cold cell is an enhanced interrogation technique where the prisoner is placed in front of an air conditioner unit for hours, days, and even years at a time. And the practice hasn't just been used by the CIA. The first recorded use of a coal cell took place in 1961 when guards at Parkman, Mississippi State Penitentiary doors detained civil rights activists with fire hoses and then turned the air conditioning system on full blast for 3 days. Wu Wen-tai probably had it the worst though. Tai was the highest ranking Vietcong officer captured during the Vietnam War. When the CIA got a hold of him, they placed him in a tiny white windowless room and turned the AC on full blast for 4 straight years. Number 6 is Shuanggui. In China, Shuanggui is a form of extra-legal detention used by the Communist Party on people who are suspected of corruption. In reality, though it seems like anyone could end up being tortured in a Shuanggui. Inside these detention centers, any form of torture is possible. One man, Yokoi, a 42-year-old chief engineer at a state-owned investment firm, was held in a Shuanggui for 38 days, being repeatedly dunked in ice-cold water until he was eventually pronounced dead. Pictures of the man's body also show large bruise marks and heavy scarring all over his body. There is still no evidence as to why he was taken into the custody in the first place. Yoki's case isn't abnormal either. Many people have been held in Shuanggui for long periods of time, with reports of people being tortured with physical manipulation, sleep deprivation, simulated drowning, or actual drowning as above, beatings, burnings, and electrocutions. Number 7 is the German chair. Syria has been locked in civil war for a long time, and with war comes torture. One form of torture often used by the Syrian government against the rebel is called the German chair. When a detainee is captured, they are placed in a metal chair. The legs and arms are secured to the metal seat, while the back of the chair is pulled back and down toward the ground. This causes severe stress on the neck, spine, and other limbs, often causing permanent damage. Basically, if your back doesn't break, you're more than the human. Joseph Hallett knows the German chair all too well. In 1992, Syrian forces neighbored Hallett just after he had obtained his medical degree from the University of Damascus. For 4 years, he was kept in solitary confinement, and for another 4, he was tortured. The most severe brutality he endured was the German chair. He says his flesh was torn so deeply from being stretched that he could see the nerves. To this day, he still has 3 centimeter wide scars on both his arms from the torturous stretching. Number 8 is cat o' nine tails. Known simply as the cat o' nine tails is a truly horrifying torture device. Essentially a multi-tailed whip, its claws can inflict vicious parallel wounds. Sometimes little metal balls with spikes are even added to the ends of the cords to make it even more excruciating. While use of the cat dates back to ancient Egypt, it is still used as a form of punishment in Trinidad and Tobago. Even after the Inter-American Court of Human Rights ordered the country to pay a convicted rapist $50,000 after whipping him with the device. Since then, use of the cat has fallen out of favor, but some people are calling for the country to bring it back for use on corrupt politicians. Oh, and letting the cat off the bag gets its own origins from pulling the cat o' nine tails out of its bag before whipping someone. Number 9 is the Syrian torture chamber. This next one doesn't really have an official name, but it is no less horrifying for it. It is often used by the Syrian government. Prisoners are taken to hidden rooms containing a box far too small for a person to lie in. The prisoners is then put in the box and forced to lie in uncomfortable positions for long periods with their hands and feet bound. To make things even worse, the box is titled on its side and also elevated, so every time food, usually a hard-boiled egg, is dropped into the box, it rolls to the bottom where it sits, taunting the detained. For one captured protester, the box was not the final form of torture. A man simply referred to as Julian was kept in the box for a week, then transferred to a room so small that he could not stand up, where he stayed another week before finally being electrocuted several times a day. Number 10 is white torture. White torture may be the worst kind of torture. It is a form of emotional and psychological torture. Instead of beating the person, electrocuting them, or keeping them in a small box, they are tormented with sensory deprivation and isolation. White torture is all too familiar to Amir Abbas Fakhrawal, who is said to be the first person to be tortured this way by the Iranian government. According to Amnesty International, the cells had no windows and everything was entirely colored creamy white. The meal was white rice on a white paper plate. If he wanted to use the washroom, he had to put a white slip of paper under the door of the cell to alert guards, so reportedly had footwear designed to muffle any sound. Fakhrawar was forbidden to talk to anyone. Ibrahim Nabawi, another journalist who was given the treatment, said, "The worst part of the white torture is never being free even after being released." Thank you for watching. Do subscribe us, do smash a like button, do share with your family and friends, and do comment us what to be next.